North Vietnamese and Viet Cong, PRG victory Thailand approximately equals 860,000 approximately equals 1,420,000 total military dead. Approximately equals 667,130 to 951,895 total military wounded. Approximately equals 604,200 total military dead. 333,620 to 392,364 total military wounded. Approximately equals 1,340,000 plus. Total military captured. Approximately equals 1 million plus. Second Third American Intervention 1965, 1966, 1967 Tet Offensive and Aftermath. Vietnamization 1969-71 Easter Offensive Post-Paris Peace Accords Spring 1975 Air Operations Naval Operations. The Vietnam War, also known as the Second Indochina War, was a conflict in Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia from 1 November 1955 to the fall of Saigon on 30 April 1975. It was the second of the Indochina Wars and was officially fought between North Vietnam and South Vietnam. North Vietnam was supported by the Soviet Union, China, and other communist allies. South Vietnam was supported by the United States, South Korea, the Philippines, Australia, Thailand, and other anti-communist allies. The war, considered a Cold War-era proxy war by some, lasted 19 years, with direct U.S. involvement ending in 1973. And included the Laotian Civil War and the Cambodian Civil War, which ended with all three countries becoming communist in 1975. The conflict emerged from the First Indochina War between the French and the communist-led Viet Minh. After the French quit attempted recolonization of Indochina in 1954, the U.S. assumed financial and military support for the South Vietnamese state. The Viet Cong, also known as Front National de Liberation du Sud Viet Nam or NLF, a South Vietnamese common front under the direction of North Vietnam, initiated a guerrilla war in the south. North Vietnam had also invaded Laos in the mid-1950s in support of insurgents, establishing the Ho Chi Minh Trail to supply and reinforce the Viet Cong. 16 U.S. involvement escalated under President John F. Kennedy through the MAAG program, from just under 1,000 military advisors in 1959 to 23,000 in 1964. 131 by 1963. The North Vietnamese had sent 40,000 soldiers to fight in South Vietnam. 16 in the Gulf of Tonkin incident in early August 1964. A U.S. destroyer was alleged to have clashed with North Vietnamese fast attack craft. In response, the U.S. Congress passed the Gulf of Tonkin Resolution and gave President Lyndon B. Johnson broad authority to increase American military presence in Vietnam. Johnson ordered the deployment of combat units for the first time and increased troop levels to 184,000. The People's Army of Vietnam engaged in more conventional warfare with U.S. and South Vietnamese forces. Despite little progress, the United States continued a significant buildup of forces. U.S. Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara, one of the principal architects of the war, began expressing doubts of victory by the end of 1966. 287 U.S. and South Vietnam forces relied on air superiority and overwhelming firepower to conduct search and destroy operations, involving ground forces, artillery, and air strikes. The U.S. also conducted a large-scale strategic bombing campaign against North Vietnam and Laos. North Vietnam was backed by the USSR and the People's Republic of China. 371-4 with the VCNPAVN mounting large-scale offensives in the Tet Offensive throughout 1968. U.S. domestic support for the war began fading. The Army of the Republic of Vietnam expanded following a period of neglect after Tet and was modeled after U.S. doctrine. The VC sustained heavy losses during the Tet Offensive and subsequent USARVN operations in the rest of 1968, losing over 50,000 men. 481. The CIA's Phoenix program further degraded the VC's membership and capabilities. By the end of the year, the VC insurgents held almost no territory in South Vietnam, and their recruitment dropped by over 80% in 1969, signifying a drastic reduction in guerrilla operations, necessitating increased use of PAV and regular soldiers from the north. In 1969, North Vietnam declared a provisional revolutionary government in South Vietnam in an attempt to give the reduced VC a more international stature. But the southern guerrillas from then on were sidelined as PAVN forces began more conventional combined arms warfare. By 1970, over 70% of communist troops in the south were northerners, and southern-dominated VC units no longer existed. Operations crossed national borders. Laos was invaded by North Vietnam early on, while Cambodia was used by North Vietnam as a supply route starting in 1967. The route through Cambodia began to be bombed by the US in 1969, while the Laos route had been heavily bombed since 1964. The deposing of the monarch Norodom Sihanouk by the Cambodian National Assembly resulted in a PAVN invasion of the country at the request of the Khmer Rouge, escalating the Cambodian Civil War and resulting in a USARVN counter-invasion. In 1969, following the election of US President Richard Nixon, a policy of Vietnamization began, which saw the conflict fought by an expanded ARVN, with US forces sidelined and increasingly demoralized by domestic op.